The nanny froze when she saw her childhood pendant around the widowed millionaire's neck. The Los Angeles afternoon sun beat down relentlessly as Emily Parker stood at the imposing wrought-iron gates of the Carter estate. She smoothed her simple navy dress, the nicest one she owned, and took a deep breath. At 25, she carried herself with quiet dignity, but her eyes betrayed a sadness born of unanswered questions. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "Don't blow it." The security guard eyed her skeptically before making a call. After a brief exchange, the massive gates swung open with a mechanical groan. Emily stepped onto a cobblestone driveway that curved through meticulously maintained gardens, before revealing a mansion that looked like it belonged in another century. As she walked toward the main house, memories flashed through her mind. The set, Joseph's orphanage with its cold walls and colder caretakers, Sister Margaret, the only one who showed her kindness, endless nights wondering who she was and where she came from, the only connection to her past, a worn photograph of a young woman holding an infant. On the back, faded blue ink read simply, "My love, always." No names, no dates, nothing but a silver rose pendant hanging from the woman's neck that Emily had memorized in every detail. The massive front door opened before she could knock. An older woman with steel gray hair pulled into a severe bun appeared, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Miss Parker, I presume." Her voice matched her appearance, rigid and cold. "Yes, I'm here about the nanny position. I'm Victoria Carter. Follow me." Emily stepped into a foyer larger than her entire apartment. Victoria's heels clicked against marble floors as Emily struggled to keep pace, taking in glimpses of rooms filled with antiques and artwork worth more than she would earn in several lifetimes. "My brother insists on interviewing you personally," Victoria said, not bothering to hide her displeasure. "Highly unusual. We typically leave such matters to the household staff." They arrived at a heavy wooden door. Victoria knocked sharply before entering without waiting for a response. "Richard, your appointment is here." The office was dominated by floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a massive desk behind which sat Richard Carter. At 51, he retained the commanding presence that had built his business empire. Silver gray hair framed a face that magazines had once called handsome. Before grief had carved permanent lines around his eyes and mouth, he looked up, and for a moment, something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, or something deeper. "Thank you, Victoria. That will be all." Victoria's mouth tightened further. "Are you certain I can—" "That will be all," he repeated, his tone brooking no argument. After Victoria left, Richard gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Please, Miss Parker, have a seat." Emily sat, back straight, hands folded in her lap. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Carter. Your references are excellent," he said, holding a folder she recognized as her application. 3 years with the Hastings family, 2 with the Palmers. "Yes, sir. I've been fortunate to work with wonderful families. And yet you left both positions. The Hastings relocated to Europe. The Palmers' children are now in boarding school." Richard nodded, studying her with an intensity that made Emily uncomfortable. "Tell me, Miss Parker, why do you want to work here?" The real answer, because your family name appeared in my research into my origins, couldn't be spoken. Instead, she offered the practiced response. "I enjoy working with children, and your grandson's situation caught my attention. Losing his mother at such a young age, I believe I could provide stability and care during a difficult time." Richard's expression softened slightly. "Ethan has had 4 nannies in the past year. He's challenging since his mother's accident. Children who have experienced loss often are. You speak from experience." Emily hesitated. "I grew up in an orphanage, Mr. Carter. I understand what it's like to feel alone." Something shifted in Richard's demeanor. He stood abruptly. "Let's introduce you to Ethan." They walked through the mansion to a garden terrace where a small boy sat alone at a table, pushing food around his plate under the watchful eye of an older woman in a housekeeper's uniform. "Ethan," Richard called. "Come meet Miss Parker." The boy looked up, his face a smaller version of his grandfather's, complete with the same guarded expression. He approached slowly, hands in his pockets. "Hello, Ethan," Emily said, kneeling to his level. "I'm Emily. Are you another nanny?" His voice carried a weariness no 7-year-old should possess. "I hope to be," "You'll leave too," he said, with the certainty of someone who had experienced too many goodbyes. Emily held his gaze. "Not if I can help it." The boy studied her for a long moment before shrugging and returning to his lunch. "He'll warm up," Richard said as they walked back to his office. Eventually, by late afternoon, Emily had completed the interview process, toured the estate, and reviewed her duties. She would live in the small guest house at the edge of the property and begin work the following Monday, as she gathered her belongings to leave. Richard entered the foyer. He had loosened his tie in the summer heat, and as he moved to sign some papers handed to him by an assistant, something caught Emily's eye. Hanging from a thin silver chain around his neck was a small pendant. It flashed in the light streaming through the windows. A delicate silver rose, identical in every detail to the one in her photograph. The room seemed to tilt. Emily steadied herself against a chair, blood rushing in her ears. "Miss Parker, are you all right?" Richard's voice seemed to come from far away. "Yes, I'm just a little lightheaded. The heat, probably. Perhaps some water before you go." As a housekeeper brought water, Emily couldn't take her eyes off the pendant, now mostly hidden beneath Richard's shirt. It couldn't be coincidence. The rose pendant was unique. She had spent years searching for anything like it. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Carter," she managed to say as she left. "I look forward to Monday." Outside the gates, Emily leaned against a tree, her heart pounding. After 25 years of searching, had fate finally led her to answers about her past? And if so, what connection could possibly exist between her and the powerful Carter family? That night in her small apartment, Emily pulled out the worn photograph. The woman's face smiled back at her, the silver rose pendant gleaming against her throat, identical to the one Richard Carter wore around his neck. "Who are you?" Emily whispered to the nameless woman. "And what does Richard Carter have to do with us?" She fell asleep with the photograph in her hand, unaware that her life was about to change forever. Monday morning arrived with a mixture of fog and anticipation. Emily pulled her used Honda into the service entrance of the Carter estate, as instructed, and parked beside a row of luxury vehicles that made her car look like a toy. She clutched her small suitcase, containing everything she considered valuable, mostly clothes, a few books, and the worn photograph hidden in a secret compartment of her wallet. "Miss Parker." Victoria Carter appeared like a specter in the doorway. "I trust you're punctual by nature, not just for first impressions." "Yes, ma'am," Emily replied, following Victoria through the kitchen where staff busied themselves with breakfast preparations. "Ethan's routine is detailed in this folder," Victoria continued, handing Emily a leather portfolio. "Breakfast at 7, lessons with his tutor from 9 to noon, lunch at 12:30, recreational time until 3, then piano followed by—" "I've memorized the schedule from our meeting, Miss Carter," Emily said, careful to keep her tone respectful. Mr. Carter was quite thorough. Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly. "Indeed. Well, Richard has developed an unusual interest in your employment. Let's hope you live up to whatever potential he sees in you." The implication was clear. Victoria neither approved of nor trusted her. "Ethan is in the breakfast room. He can be difficult in the mornings." Emily found the boy pushing eggs around his plate, legs swinging without reaching the floor. His small shoulders carried the weight of adult sadness. "Good morning, Ethan," Emily said brightly. He glanced up without responding. "Not much of a morning person. That's okay. I'm still working on it myself." Emily poured herself a cup of coffee from the service tray. "Mind if I join you?" Ethan shrugged, which Emily took as permission. She sat across from him, noticing a physics textbook beside his plate. "Advanced Studies for 7, isn't it?" she asked, picking up the book. "It's my dad's," Ethan mumbled. "He was a scientist before the accident." Emily nodded, absorbing this new information. "Do you like science too?" "I like space. Dad was going to build rockets to go to Mars." "That sounds amazing. He's dead now." "Him and Mom." He stated this with the blunt matter-of-factness children use when reciting painful truths they've had to accept. Emily's heart twisted. "I'm sorry, Ethan. Grandpa says they're in heaven, but Victoria says that's nonsense. What do you think?" Ethan considered her question. Perhaps the first time an adult had asked for his opinion on the matter. "I think they're somewhere. Dad would figure out how to send a message if they were just gone." Emily smiled. "That sounds like smart thinking to me." Something shifted in Ethan's expression. Not quite a smile, but a softening. He pushed his plate away. "Can we go outside, Mrs.? Perkins never let me go outside until lessons were done." "Well, I'm not Mrs. Perkins," Emily said. "Let's make a deal. 20 minutes outside. Then we start lessons with full concentration." "Deal." Ethan's nod was the first genuine engagement she'd seen from him. The morning proceeded more smoothly than Emily expected. Ethan, while withdrawn, was intelligent and responsive when treated with respect rather than condescension. By lunchtime, he had completed his lessons efficiently, earning another outdoor break as they ate sandwiches on the terrace. Richard appeared, surprising both of them. "Grandpa?" Ethan's face brightened. "Emily let me build a fort in the garden." Richard raised an eyebrow. "Did she now?" "As a reward for completing his math early," Emily explained, standing respectfully. Richard studied them both, an unreadable expression crossing his face. "I don't recall the last time Ethan finished math willingly." "Emily doesn't make it boring," the boy said. A ghost of a smile touched Richard's lips. "A rare accomplishment, Miss Parker." He turned to leave, then paused. "Will you join me in my office after Ethan's piano lesson? I'd like an update on your first day." Throughout the afternoon, Emily remained professionally focused while cataloging details of the household. The east wing of the mansion remained closed off. "Mrs. Laura's rooms," whispered a maid when Emily asked. Staff spoke in hushed tones when Richard or Victoria passed. The housekeeper, Mrs. Alvarez, watched Emily with curious eyes that held neither Victoria's suspicion nor the other staff's indifference. After delivering Ethan to his piano teacher, Emily found herself with 15 unexpected minutes, following her investigative instincts. She wandered toward the closed wing, only to find herself face to face with Victoria turning a corner. Lost. "Miss Parker." Victoria's voice was cold enough to freeze the summer air. "Looking for the powder room, actually. In the opposite direction of anywhere you're authorized to be." Emily maintained a pleasant expression. "I'm still learning the layout. It's quite a labyrinth." "Indeed. Allow me to escort you to more appropriate areas." As Victoria led her away, Emily noticed the woman's hand trembling slightly. Whatever lay in the closed wing clearly triggered more than grief. It triggered fear. Later, in Richard's office, Emily provided a professional update on Ethan's day. Richard listened attentively, but seemed distracted, his fingers occasionally touching the hidden pendant beneath his shirt. "He's very bright," Emily concluded, "and deeply curious, with consistent attention and—" "What made you apply for this position, Miss Parker?" Richard interrupted. The abrupt question momentarily threw her. "As I mentioned in my interview." "Yes, I recall your answer. Now I'd like the truth." Emily's pulse quickened. "Sir," Richard leaned forward, "our security is thorough, Miss Parker. You've researched my family extensively, library records, newspaper archives, even a visit to our corporate headquarters posing as a student." Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Her carefully constructed opportunity was collapsing. "I'm not angry," Richard said, surprising her. "Just curious why a nanny would investigate a potential employer so thoroughly." Emily made a split-second decision. Partial truth might preserve her position. "I investigate all potential employers. Mr. Carter, orphans learn early that the world isn't always kind to vulnerable people. I needed to ensure your household was safe." Richard studied her for a long moment. "A reasonable precaution, though unusually thorough." "I'm unusually careful." His expression suggested he didn't entirely believe her, but wasn't ready to dismiss her explanation. "Ethan seems to respond to you. That's rare these days. Thank you for giving me the chance to work with him. Don't make me regret it, Miss Parker." That night, in the small but comfortable guest house, Emily carefully examined her photograph under the bedside lamp. The woman's features, high cheekbones, almond-shaped eyes, were similar to her own, and the pendant, identical to Richard's. A soft knock at her door startled her. She quickly tucked the photo away. Mrs. Alvarez stood outside with fresh towels. "Settling in okay, miss?" "Yes, thank you." The older woman hesitated. "You know, you remind me of someone." Emily's heart skipped. "Oh, can't place it though." Mrs. Alvarez smiled kindly. "Sleep well, miss. This house needs some fresh energy. It's been too sad for too long." After the housekeeper left, Emily sat on her bed, mind racing. The pendant. Richard's unusual interest in her. Mrs. Alvarez's comment. Pieces of a puzzle were appearing, but she couldn't yet see the picture they formed. What she did know, something terrible had happened in this household. Something that kept a wing closed off and cast shadows over its inhabitants. And somehow, impossibly, it might be connected to her own mysterious origins. Emily glanced at her reflection in the mirror, wondering if somewhere in this mansion were photographs of a woman whose features matched her own. By the end of her first week, Emily had established herself as an unusual presence in the Carter household. Unlike previous nannies who had either treated Ethan with cloying affection or cold discipline, Emily offered something different, genuine respect. She listened when he spoke, answered his questions honestly, and gave him space to grieve while gently drawing him back into the world of the living. He ate all his dinner, Mrs. Alvarez whispered to Emily on Friday evening, as if announcing a miracle, and asked for seconds. "He's a growing boy," Emily replied with a smile, though she understood the significance. As Ethan's rigid schedule relaxed under Emily's care, Victoria's suspicions intensified. Emily often caught the woman watching her from doorways or across the garden, her hawk-like gaze missing nothing. On Saturday morning, with Ethan occupied by his weekend chess tutor, Emily seized an opportunity she'd been waiting for. Richard had mentioned his library was available to staff, a casual comment that Emily suspected was meant specifically for her. The library occupied a corner of the west wing, 3 walls of floor-to-ceiling bookshelves surrounding a leather-furnished reading area. Morning sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Emily moved methodically through the shelves, familiarizing herself with the organization system, fiction, biography, history, a lifetime of collected knowledge. But it was the cabinet beneath the window seat that drew her attention, labeled simply Archives. It contained leather-bound scrapbooks and newspaper clippings. The most recent volume felt undisturbed, as if rarely opened. Emily carefully lifted it to a reading table and began to turn the heavy pages. Most contained business-related news. Carter Industries acquires tech startup. Richard Carter named Entrepreneur of the Year. But midway through, a small headline caught her eye. Prominent businessman's wife missing. The article was brief. Laura Carter, 28, wife of industrialist Richard Carter, has been reported missing following what police describe as a domestic disturbance. Sources close to the family indicate Mrs. Carter may have fled with the couple's infant daughter after an argument. Mr. Carter declined to comment. The date, September 14th, 1999, sent a chill through Emily. She'd been left at St. Joseph's Orphanage on September 17th, 1999. Just 3 days later, she quickly checked her surroundings before continuing to the next page. A follow-up article reported, "Search for missing mother and child continues." And then, 2 weeks later, "Tragic end to search for missing mother." This article was longer, detailing how Laura Carter's car had been found submerged in a lake 50 miles north of Los Angeles. No bodies were recovered, but authorities presumed both mother and infant had drowned. "A terrible accident," Richard was quoted as saying. "My family asks for privacy during this unimaginable time." Emily's hands trembled as she carefully photographed the articles with her phone. The timeline matched perfectly with her abandonment at St. Joseph's. But if Laura Carter and her baby were presumed dead, how had the infant, possibly Emily herself, ended up at the orphanage? "Miss Parker," Emily started, nearly dropping her phone. Victoria stood in the doorway, her thin frame silhouetted against the light from the hallway. "Miss Carter, I was just exploring our family history." Victoria's voice was dangerously soft as she approached. "How industrious of you." Emily gestured to the bookshelves. "Mr. Carter mentioned the library was available to staff. I've always loved to read." Victoria's gaze fell to the open scrapbook. "Ancient history doesn't concern you, Miss Parker. Your only concern should be Ethan's welfare." "Of course." Emily closed the book carefully. "I was actually looking for children's classics Ethan might enjoy." "Were you?" It wasn't a question. Victoria reached for the scrapbook, her manicured fingers brushing against Emily's hand. "Richard indulges his staff's curiosity. I do not." As Victoria returned the book to its cabinet, Emily noticed something strange. A flash of genuine fear crossed the woman's face, quickly masked by her usual contempt. "Ethan will be finished with his lesson soon," Victoria said. "I suggest you attend to your actual duties." After Victoria left, Emily released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The woman's reaction confirmed her suspicions. There was something in the Carter family history that Victoria desperately wanted to keep buried. Later that afternoon, Emily took Ethan to the kitchen garden where Mrs. Alvarez was picking herbs. The elderly housekeeper greeted them warmly, giving Ethan a cookie from her pocket. "Mrs. Alvarez, how long have you worked for the Carter family?" Emily asked as Ethan explored the garden. 30 years this December," the woman replied, pride evident in her voice. "Since before Mr. Richard married. You must have known his wife then." Mrs. Alvarez's hands stilled briefly. "Mrs. Laura, yes." She glanced toward the house, then lowered her voice. "A beautiful soul, too gentle for this family. What happened to her?" Emily kept her tone casual while carefully watching the older woman's reaction. "An accident, they say." Mrs. Alvarez crossed herself. "But there are no secrets from God." "What do you mean?" The housekeeper looked over her shoulder again. "Some in this house don't like questions about the past, miss. Especially about Mrs. Laura?" "Victoria," Emily guessed. "Mrs. Alvarez nodded almost imperceptibly. "Mrs. Laura was afraid in those last days. I saw it. She wouldn't leave her baby's side. Not even for a moment." Emily's heart raced. "Did you know the baby, Laura's daughter? Such a pretty little thing. Eyes like her mother's." Mrs. Alvarez studied Emily's face with sudden intensity. "Eyes like Mrs. Alvarez." Victoria's voice cut through the garden like a knife. "The dinner preparations require your attention." The housekeeper straightened, her expression shuddering. "Yes, Ms. Carter, right away." As Mrs. Alvarez hurried inside, Victoria turned her cold gaze to Emily. "Ethan should be preparing for dinner, not playing in the dirt." "We were learning about herbs," Emily replied, meeting Victoria's stare. "Educational and sensory experience combined." How innovative. Victoria's tone could have frozen fire. "I've scheduled a meeting with Richard to discuss your methods this evening, after Ethan is in bed." After Victoria stalked away, Ethan tugged at Emily's sleeve. "She doesn't like you," he whispered. "Not everyone has to like you to do a good job." Emily answered with a smile she didn't feel. "Come on, let's get you cleaned up for dinner." That night, after tucking Ethan in, Emily paced her guest house. Anxiety mounting, Victoria's meeting could only mean trouble. Had she moved too quickly? Asked too many questions? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Opening the door, she found an elderly man in a chauffeur's uniform standing on her step. "Miss Parker, I'm Carlos. I drive for the family." "Yes, I've seen you around. Can I help you?" Carlos glanced nervously over his shoulder. "I knew Mrs. Laura very well. I was her driver." Emily's pulse quickened. "Would you like to come in?" Once inside, Carlos spoke in a low, urgent tone. "I saw you with Mrs. Alvarez today, asking questions. I'm just trying to understand the household dynamics," Emily said carefully. "The dynamics, yes." Carlos nodded. "But you are looking at Mrs. Laura's picture in the library, the one with her pendant." Emily stiffened. "You were watching me. I watch everything in this house, miss. Have for 30 years. His weathered face showed decades of observing the Carter family secrets. Mrs. Laura wore that rose pendant every day. A gift from Mr. Richard when they married. One of a kind. He had it made special. Why are you telling me this?" Carlos leaned closer. "Because when I saw you arrive last week, I thought I was seeing a ghost. You have her eyes, miss. Her smile." Emily's breath caught. "You think I don't think, I know." Carlos's voice dropped even lower. "I was there the night she disappeared, Ms. Victoria was threatening her. Said she would take the baby away if Mrs. Laura told Mr. Richard what she had discovered." "Discovered what?" Carlos shook his head. "I don't know, but 2 days later Mrs. Laura was gone, and they said the baby drowned with her." His eyes filled with tears. "But I never believed it." Before Emily could respond, headlights swept across the window. Carlos stood abruptly. "That's Miss Victoria's car. I cannot be seen here." He moved to the door, then turned back. "Be careful, Miss Parker. If you are who I think you are You're in more danger than you know. The morning after Carlos's visit, Emily awoke with renewed purpose. If the chauffeur's suspicions were correct, she wasn't just searching for answers anymore. She was fighting for her birthright and uncovering the truth about her mother's disappearance. But she needed to move carefully. Victoria's meeting with Richard the previous night could have put her job in jeopardy. To her surprise, breakfast proceeded normally. Richard nodded a distracted greeting before disappearing into his study, while Victoria was mysteriously absent. "Is everything okay?" Emily asked Mrs. Alvarez as the housekeeper poured coffee. "Ms.?" "Victoria left for San Francisco early this morning. Business emergency." Mrs. Alvarez's slight smile suggested she considered this development fortunate. "She'll be gone 3 days." Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. 3 days without Victoria's watchful eye. A gift she hadn't anticipated. "Can we go to the planetarium today?" Ethan asked suddenly, looking up from his cereal. "Dad used to take me on Sundays." The request, the first Ethan had initiated, caught Emily by surprise. "I'll have to check with your grandfather, but I don't see why not." Richard granted permission with unexpected ease. "It would be good for him to get out of the house," he said, handing Emily his credit card. "Take the Range Rover. Carlos will drive you." The planetarium visit marked a turning point in Emily's relationship with Ethan. Away from the mansion's oppressive atmosphere, he transformed into a different child. Animated, enthusiastic, pointing out constellations and correcting the tour guide on facts about Jupiter's moons. "Your dad taught you a lot," Emily observed as they sat in the planetarium cafe afterward. Ethan nodded, stirring his hot chocolate. "He was going to take me to NASA headquarters for my 8th birthday." His voice faltered. "That's next month." Emily reached across the table to squeeze his hand. "What if we planned something special? Not NASA, but something your dad would have liked. Could we watch the meteor shower? Dad said the Perseids in August are the best." "I think that's a perfect idea. We'll make a whole night of it." For the first time, Emily saw Ethan smile. A real, full smile that reached his eyes. It transformed his small face, revealing dimples just like the ones she saw in her own mirror. Carlos watched their interaction from a respectful distance, his eyes occasionally meeting Emily's with unspoken understanding. On the drive home, while Ethan dozed in the back seat, the chauffeur spoke quietly. "He hasn't smiled like that since before the accident." "What happened to his parents?" Emily asked. "Equally quiet. Private plane crash, Mr. James. That's Mr. Richard's son. Was a pilot. He and his wife were flying to Santa Barbara for the weekend. Bad weather came suddenly." Carlos shook his head. "Mr. Ethan was staying with his grandfather, just 6 then. And Richard raised him after. Ms. Victoria wanted to send him to boarding school. Said it would be better for a boy to have structure." Carlos's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Mr. Richard refused. Only time I've seen him stand up to her like that." Emily processed this information. "Victoria seems to have a lot of influence for a sister. She runs the company finances, has for 20 years. Carlos glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Mrs. Laura once told me she found discrepancies in the books. Big ones. That was the week before she disappeared." The implication hung in the air between them. Before Emily could ask more questions, Ethan stirred, ending their conversation. Back at the mansion, Richard was waiting for them. His eyes softened at the sight of his sleeping grandson. "I'll take him," he said, lifting Ethan with surprising gentleness. "Thank you, Miss Parker. This seems to have been good for him." Emily followed, as Richard carried Ethan to his bedroom. She watched from the doorway as the older man carefully removed his grandson's shoes and tucked him in, brushing the hair from his forehead in a tender gesture. "He talked about the stars all day," Emily said softly. "He knows an impressive amount for his age. James was determined he would be a scientist." Richard's voice held pride and grief in equal measure. "Like father, like son," he hoped. "You were a scientist." Richard smiled faintly. "Before I became a businessman, astrophysics, actually. James followed in my footsteps before taking over operations at Carter Industries." He touched the pendant beneath his shirt, a gesture Emily had noticed was habitual when he spoke of family. "That pendant," Emily said, taking a risk. "It's beautiful. Unusual." Richard looked startled, his hand dropping. "It was my wife's," he said after a moment. "I had it made for her when we married. The rose was her favorite flower." "I'm sorry for your loss," Emily said, Meaning it. Richard studied her face. You remind me of someone, Miss Parker. Emily's heart thundered in her chest. Do I? For a moment, she thought he might say more, but he simply nodded and turned back to Ethan. Good night. The next morning, Emily found Ethan more talkative than ever, full of plans for their meteor watching party. As they walked through the garden after lessons, he pointed to a stone bench partially hidden by rose bushes. That was my grandmother's favorite spot, he said. Grandpa doesn't come here anymore. Emily sat on the bench, breathing in the scent of roses. Did you know your grandmother? No, she died before I was born. Grandpa says I would have had an aunt too, but she died with my grandma. An aunt. Yeah, a baby girl. There's no pictures of her though. Ethan picked a small stone from the path and tossed it. Sometimes I think Grandpa is sad because I look like my dad, but there's nobody who looks like his little girl. Emily's throat tightened. Your grandfather is lucky to have you. Ethan, that afternoon, while Ethan napped, exhausted from their outing and a morning of unprecedented engagement, Emily found herself drawn to the roses. The garden was meticulously maintained, each bush labeled with its variety. Queen Elizabeth. Peace, Mr. Lincoln. But the ones surrounding Laura's bench were different. A delicate silvery pink variety labeled simply, Laura's Rose. Custom hybrid, said a voice behind her. Emily turned to find Richard standing there watching her. I had them created for her. The color matched her favorite dress. They're beautiful, Emily said. She was pregnant when I gave her the first ones, Richard continued, his gaze distant. She joked that our daughter would grow up thinking she was named after the roses, not the other way around. Emily's pulse quickened. You were going to name your daughter Laura. No, Richard smiled faintly. Emily, we were going to name her Emily. The world seemed to stop. Emily gripped the bench for support, hoping Richard wouldn't notice her reaction. That's my name, she managed to say, her voice barely steady. Yes, Richard looked at her directly now. A coincidence that struck me during your interview. Was it just coincidence? Emily wanted to ask more, but Richard had already turned away, walking back toward the house with the rigid posture of a man carrying invisible weight. That evening, Emily found a leather-bound book on her doorstep. Stargazing for Beginners. Inside was a note in Richard's precise handwriting. For your meteor-watching plans with Ethan, it was James's favorite. She held the book to her chest. Emotions swirling, in just 2 weeks, she had formed connections that seemed to transcend her role as a nanny. Ethan was opening up to her. Richard was sharing personal stories and mementos, and everywhere she turned, she found more threads connecting her to Laura Carter. In the guest house mirror, Emily studied her own features. The almond-shaped eyes Carlos had mentioned, the dimples Ethan shared, the high cheekbones visible in Laura's photographs. Was she imagining the resemblance? Seeing what she desperately wanted to see? Or was she truly looking at the daughter Laura Carter had tried to save? And if she was that daughter, what had Victoria done to separate her from her family? What secret had been worth destroying so many lives to keep? Victoria's business trip provided the perfect opportunity Emily had been waiting for. With the household's watchdog away, she could explore more freely without constant scrutiny. On the second morning of Victoria's absence, after settling Ethan with his tutor, Emily decided to take her biggest risk yet. The sealed East Wing had beckoned to her since her arrival. Mrs. Alvarez had called it Mrs. Laura's Rooms, preserved like a shrine to the past. If Emily wanted to understand what had happened 25 years ago, those rooms might hold the answers. She chose her moment carefully. Richard was at the office. The staff occupied with their morning routines, using the master key Mrs. Alvarez had entrusted to her for emergencies with Ethan. Emily slipped down the quiet hallway to the heavy oak doors that separated the East Wing from the rest of the house. Her hands trembled as she inserted the key. Would an alarm sound? Had Victoria installed additional security? The lock turned with surprising ease, as if welcoming her home. The air inside felt different, still and undisturbed, carrying the faintest trace of a floral perfume that had outlasted its owner. Heavy curtains filtered the morning light, casting the corridor in a golden glow. Emily moved silently, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. The first room she entered appeared to be a sitting room, furnished in soft blues and creams, unlike the formal, impersonal spaces in the rest of the mansion. This room felt designed for comfort. Books remained on side tables, as if their reader had just stepped away momentarily. A delicate teacup sat on a shelf, lipstick still marking its rim. "Laura," Emily whispered, touching the cup gently. 25 years? And Richard had preserved everything exactly as his wife had left it. She moved deeper into the suite, finding a dressing room with clothes still hanging in the closet. Designer dresses from the late 90s, silk blouses, casual wear, all suggesting a woman who moved between high society and comfortable domesticity with ease. At the back of the closet, Emily found a small safe, its door slightly ajar, empty. Had someone removed its contents recently, or had it been emptied long ago? The bedroom itself was a time capsule. King-sized bed perfectly made, vanity arranged with silver-backed brushes and perfume bottles, photographs in silver frames. Emily examined these eagerly. Richard and Laura on their wedding day. She dark-haired and radiant. He younger, and smiling in a way Emily had never seen. Laura, in a garden, pregnant and glowing, one hand resting on her rounded belly, while the other held a single silvery pink rose. On the bedside table sat a leather-bound book with a ribbon marker. Emily's pulse quickened as she realized it was a diary. She opened it carefully, finding entries dating back 26 years, written in an elegant, flowing hand. Most entries detailed everyday life, charity events, dinner parties, quiet moments with Richard. Laura's voice emerged clearly from the pages, intelligent, observant, occasionally wry about the social obligations of being Mrs. Richard Carter. She seemed particularly amused by Victoria's pretensions while maintaining a polite distance from her sister-in-law. Emily flipped to the final entries, dated just weeks before Laura's disappearance. The tone had changed dramatically. August 28th, 1999. V found me in R's office today, made it clear I shouldn't be snooping, but the discrepancies are too large to ignore. Millions missing from the foundation accounts. Where is the money going? I need to tell Richard, but V's warning felt like more than empty threats. September 1999. The baby kicked all night, as if sensing my anxiety. I've made copies of everything I found and locked them in our safe. Richard has been so distracted with the merger that I hate to worry him, but this can't wait much longer. V has been watching me constantly. September 10th, 1999. V confronted me today. "Some secrets should stay buried," she said. Then she mentioned the baby, my sweet Emily, in a way that made my blood run cold. "It would be a shame if anything happened to your perfect little family. I'm afraid. For the first time since I've known her, I believe Victoria capable of true evil." The final entry was dated September 13th, 1999, the day before Laura disappeared. "I can't wait any longer. I've called Carlos to prepare the car for tomorrow. We'll go to Richard's lake house until I can reach him. I've written everything down and left copies with people I trust. If anything happens to me, the truth will still reach Richard. My darling Emily is too precious to risk. I'll keep her safe, whatever it takes. I've told no one of our plans except Mercedes, who has prepared supplies for us, the silver rose pendant Richard gave me. I'll keep it with Emily always, so if we're separated, he'll recognize his daughter, God willing. This is just excessive caution, and we'll laugh about it someday." Emily's hands shook as she carefully photographed each page with her phone. This was more than she had dared hope for. Laura's own words confirming her fears about Victoria, the plan to escape, the pendant as a way to identify her baby. A sound in the hallway startled her. Emily quickly returned the diary to its exact position and moved toward the connecting bathroom. There she found more evidence of a hasty departure. Prescription prenatal vitamins, a half-empty bottle of lotion. Behind the bathroom mirror was a medicine cabinet. Emily opened it carefully, finding typical toiletries, and a folded piece of paper tucked behind a box of bandages. She extracted it gently, unfolding what appeared to be a hospital record. Carter, Emily Rose, born July 12, 1999, 6 syllables 7 O's, parents, Richard and Laura Carter. Her birth certificate. Emily stared at it in disbelief, her vision blurring with tears. Here was proof, irrefutable proof, of her identity. Another sound, closer this time, sent her heart racing. She quickly photographed the certificate. then carefully refolded it and returned it exactly as she had found it. As she closed the cabinet, she caught sight of herself in the mirror, alongside a framed photograph of Laura that hung on the adjacent wall. The resemblance was undeniable. Same eyes, same cheekbones, same dimple when she half smiled. For 25 years, she had wondered who she was, where she came from. Now the answer stared back at her from a stranger's face that somehow felt like her own. "Miss Parker," Mrs. Alvarez's voice called from the hallway. Emily quickly composed herself and stepped into the corridor. "I'm here." The housekeeper looked surprised, then concerned. "This wing is sealed, miss." The door was unlocked. Emily lied, her mind racing for a plausible excuse. "I heard Ethan say he wanted to explore it, so I thought I should check if there were any hazards." Mrs. Alvarez studied her face. "You've been crying." "It's the dust," Emily said, wiping her eyes. "Allergies?" The older woman's expression softened with something like understanding. "These rooms hold many sorrows and secrets." She glanced over her shoulder, then whispered, "Miss, Victoria would be very angry to find anyone here." "I won't tell if you won't," Emily said. Attempting a smile, Mrs. Alvarez hesitated, then nodded. "Mr. Ethan is asking for you. His tutor left early. Migraine." As they walked back to the main house, Emily felt the weight of the information she had discovered. Laura had feared for her life and her baby's safety. She had planned their escape, using the pendant as a way for Richard to recognize their daughter if they were separated. Somehow, that plan had gone terribly wrong. Laura had ended up dead, or presumed dead, while her infant daughter had been abandoned at St. Joseph's Orphanage, the pendant missing, her identity erased, and Victoria Carter had orchestrated all of it. The question now was, what would Emily do with this information? Confronting Victoria without solid proof beyond photographs of diary entries would be dangerous. Richard might not believe her without DNA evidence, and someone had gone to extraordinary lengths 25 years ago to separate mother from child. What might they do if they discovered Emily knew the truth? As she rounded the corner to the living room where Ethan waited, Emily nearly collided with Richard, returning early from the office. "Miss Parker?" he said, studying her flushed face. "Is everything all right?" Emily met his gaze, seeing Laura's husband, her father, a man who had lost everything and never fully recovered. "Yes," she said, "everything's fine." But for the first time since entering the Carter household, Emily was certain that nothing would ever be fine again until the full truth was revealed. Victoria Carter returned from San Francisco like a storm front, her arrival changing the atmosphere of the entire household. Staff who had relaxed in her absence resumed their rigid formality. Mrs. Alvarez spoke in hushed tones. Even Richard seemed more reserved at breakfast, his casual conversations with Emily replaced by distracted nods. Ethan noticed the shift immediately. "Victoria's mad about something," he whispered to Emily as they worked on his science project. "She was yelling at Grandpa in his study." "Grown-up business can be stressful," Emily replied, though her mind raced with possibilities. Had Victoria discovered her exploration of the East Wing? Had someone reported her questions? Her answer came that afternoon. Emily was helping Ethan with a model of the solar system. When Victoria entered the sunroom, her expression glacial. "Ethan, Mrs. Alvarez has prepared your favorite cookies. Why don't you go have some before your piano lesson?" The boy glanced uncertainly between his great-aunt and Emily. "Go ahead," Emily encouraged with a smile she didn't feel. "We'll finish Jupiter's moons after your lesson." Once Ethan left, Victoria's facade dropped completely. "My brother may be blinded by whatever game you're playing, Miss Parker, but I am not." "I'm not sure what you mean," Emily said, carefully placing a small styrofoam ball on the table. "Don't play innocent." Victoria's voice was dangerously soft. "Mrs. Alvarez informed me of your unauthorized exploration of the East Wing." Emily's stomach dropped. She'd trusted the housekeeper. "That was a misunderstanding. I thought I heard, 'Spare me your fabrications.'" Victoria stepped closer. "What I want to know is what you're really after. Are you another reporter trying to dig up ancient history for some tawdry exposé? Or perhaps something more calculating? A con artist who researched our family's tragedy to exploit Richard's grief?" Emily met her gaze steadily. "I'm a nanny who cares about Ethan's well-being." "That's all?" Victoria laughed, a sound without humor. A nanny who investigates her employer's past, explores sealed areas of the house, and questions staff about events from before she was born. I was curious about the family I work for. That seems natural. Curious? Victoria's eyes narrowed. Did your curiosity extend to my brother's desk? Items have been disturbed. This, at least, was an accusation Emily could honestly deny. I have never entered Mr. Carter's study without his presence and permission. Victoria studied her for a long moment. I've done some investigation of my own, Miss Parker. Your references are impeccable. Too impeccable, perhaps. Your work history is a neat line of prestigious families. Yet before age 18, you barely exist on paper. Emily tensed. I grew up in foster care. Yes. St. Joseph's Orphanage, founded by the Catholic Diocese, closed 10 years ago due to financial mismanagement. Victoria smiled thinly. Records scattered, most destroyed. Very convenient for someone who might want to invent a background. I didn't invent anything, Emily said. Her voice steady despite her racing heart. Perhaps not. Victoria picked up the small Earth model from Ethan's project, rolling it between her fingers. But you are hiding something, and I will discover what it is. She set the sphere down with deliberate care. In the meantime, I've spoken with Richard about terminating your employment. Emily's blood ran cold. On what grounds? Unauthorized access to private family quarters would be sufficient. Victoria straightened her already impeccable blazer. However, Richard feels Ethan has bonded with you. He's overruled me. For now. The threat lingered in the air between them. Consider this a final warning, Miss Parker. Whatever you're looking for, whatever game you're playing, it ends now. Or your employment will. After Victoria left, Emily sank into a chair, hands trembling. Not from fear, but from anger. This woman had destroyed her mother's life, separated Emily from her family, and now threatened her for simply seeking the truth. But Victoria's confrontation had revealed something important. Richard had defended her, despite his sister's suspicions. He had chosen to keep Emily in the household. The connection she'd felt with him wasn't imagined. Somewhere, perhaps unconsciously, he recognized something of his lost wife and daughter in her. That evening, after putting Ethan to bed, Emily received a text message from an unknown number. Garden shed, 9 p.m., important. She recognized Carlos's handwriting from the note he'd left previously. The garden shed stood at the far edge of the property, used to store landscaping equipment. Emily made her way there cautiously, hyper-aware of the security cameras Victoria had installed throughout the grounds. Carlos was waiting inside, looking agitated. Ms. Victoria questioned me today. About you. About what we've discussed. Emily's stomach tightened. What did you tell her? Nothing important. But she suspects. He ran a hand through his thinning hair. She's dangerous, Miss Parker. More than you know. I found Laura's diary, Emily said quietly. She was investigating missing funds. Victoria threatened her and the baby. Carlos nodded grimly. Mrs. Laura discovered Victoria was embezzling from the Carter Foundation. Millions meant for children's hospitals and research grants. Gone, when she confronted Victoria. Things turned ugly. But why not just tell Richard? Mrs. Laura tried. But it was the week of the massive Carter Tech merger. Mr. Richard was in Tokyo. By the time she got really scared, it was too late. Carlos looked down. I was supposed to drive her to the lake house the morning she disappeared. When I came to get her, the room was ransacked, and both she and the baby were gone. And her car was found in the lake, Emily finished. A day later, police ruled it an accident, but I never believed it. Carlos hesitated. There's something else you should know. Victoria wasn't alone in this. What do you mean? Javier Mendez, the family lawyer, he's been in love with Victoria for years, would do anything for her. He handled the investigation, made sure certain evidence disappeared. Emily processed this new information. Does he still work for the family? He's a senior partner now, comes for dinner every Sunday. Carlos checked his watch nervously. I should go. Be careful around Miss Victoria, she's having you watched. After Carlos left, Emily remained in the shed, thinking, if Victoria had gone to such lengths 25 years ago to cover up her crimes, what might she do now if she suspected Emily's true identity? She needed proof, irrefutable proof, before confronting Richard. The diary entries and birth certificate photos weren't enough. She needed physical evidence of Victoria's embezzlement and Laura's discovery of it, and she needed to know exactly what had happened to her mother. Emily's opportunity came the next morning. Richard announced at breakfast that he and Victoria would be attending an emergency board meeting. "The acquisition hit a snag," he explained, straightening his tie. "We'll be gone most of the day. Javier is bringing the legal team to the office." The mention of Javier sent a chill through Emily, but she kept her expression neutral. "Ethan and I will be fine. We're planning to work on his science project." Once the siblings departed, Emily set her plan in motion. After ensuring Ethan was happily engaged with Mrs. Alvarez baking cookies, an activity that would keep him occupied for at least an hour, she made her way to Richard's study. Unlike her exploration of the East Wing, this was a direct violation of trust. If caught, she would have no explanation. But if Carlos was right about Victoria's financial crimes, the evidence might be hidden in plain sight. Richard's study was immaculate. Every item positioned with precision, Emily began her search methodically, careful to return each object exactly to its place. The filing cabinet revealed nothing unusual. The desk drawers contained standard office supplies and family photographs, including one of Laura holding newborn Emily, her silver rose pendant visible against her hospital gown. Emily stared at the photo, momentarily overwhelmed. There she was, hours old, cradled by the mother she couldn't remember but had spent her life searching for. Forcing herself to focus, she continued her search. Finally turning to the antique secretary desk in the corner, its roll top was locked, but the small key she had found taped beneath Richard's desk drawer fit perfectly. Inside was a chaotic contrast to Richard's usual organization: folders haphazardly stuffed with papers, old photographs, and a small velvet box. Emily opened the box first, finding a delicate silver chain, but no rose pendant. Where the pendant should have attached was an empty clasp. Beneath the mess of papers, Emily found a manila envelope marked simply L. Inside were letters in Laura's handwriting, addressed to Richard but apparently never sent. The final one, dated September 13th, 1999, confirmed everything. "My dearest Richard, by the time you read this, Emily and I will be at the lake house. I've discovered something terrible. Victoria has been systematically embezzling from the foundation. Millions diverted to offshore accounts. I have proof in the form of bank transfers, all documented in the files I've hidden in our special place. When I confronted her, she threatened our daughter. I've never seen such cold hatred in anyone's eyes. I fear what she might do. I've tried reaching you in Tokyo, but Javier insists you can't be disturbed during negotiations. I suspect he's working with Victoria. Please come to the lake house as soon as you can. I don't feel safe anymore. All my love." Laura at the bottom of the envelope was a small newspaper clipping. "Unidentified infant left at St. Joseph's Orphanage." The date, September 17th, 1999, was circled in Richard's handwriting. With a question mark beside it, he had suspected. All these years, Richard had suspected his daughter might have survived. Emily carefully photographed each document before returning everything exactly as she'd found it. As she closed the secretary desk, she noticed a shadow fall across the doorway. Victoria stood there, her expression unreadable. "I always wondered," she said quietly, "what would happen if Richard's precious daughter ever returned to claim what was hers?" Her lips curved into a cold smile. "Now I know. Victoria." Emily's voice sounded steadier than she felt. "I thought you were at the board meeting." Clearly, Victoria stepped into the study, closing the door behind her with a soft click that sounded like a prison gate locking. "Just as I thought you were supervising my great-nephew." Emily's mind raced. Her phone with the incriminating photographs was in her pocket. If she could just get past Victoria and out of the room. "I was looking for additional science materials for Ethan's project," she said, gesturing to the astronomy books on Richard's shelves, in a locked desk. Victoria's smile never reached her eyes. "You're a better liar than I expected, but not good enough. I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think you do." Victoria moved to the secretary desk, running her fingers along its polished surface. "Did you find what you were looking for in Laura's letters? The ones Richard keeps hidden from me?" Emily remained silent, calculating her options. "You know, I've been watching you since you arrived. Victoria continued. The resemblance is there, if one is looking for it. The same eyes, the same stubborn chin. She tilted her head. I knew this day might come. I've prepared for it for 25 years. What day? Emily asked, playing for time. Victoria laughed softly. The day Laura's brat would return, threatening everything I've built. Her expression hardened. Do you have any idea how much power you could disrupt? How many millions of dollars rest on the Carter name that I've protected? Protected? Emily couldn't contain her anger. You stole from your family's foundation. You threatened a mother and her newborn. You separated me from my father. Victoria's eyes widened slightly. Whether at Emily's directness or her knowledge, it was impossible to tell. So you've pieced it together. She nodded slowly. I underestimated you, just as I underestimated your mother. Her smile returned, cold and calculating. But unlike Laura, you have no proof that anyone would believe. I have her diary. I have the birth certificate. I have your own words right now. Your word against mine. A respected businesswoman versus an orphan with a convenient story. Victoria stepped closer. Who do you think Richard will believe? The sister who helped him rebuild after tragedy? Or a manipulative young woman claiming to be his long-lost daughter? DNA doesn't lie, Emily replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. DNA tests can be corrupted, results can be altered. Victoria waved dismissively. Javier has connections throughout the medical establishment. One phone call, and your proof disappears. Emily felt a chill at the casual way Victoria referenced corrupting evidence. What happened to my mother? She demanded. Did you kill her? For the first time, Victoria looked genuinely startled. Is that what you think? That I'm a murderer? She laughed, the sound brittle and sharp. How dramatic. Your mother drove herself into that lake. An accident just as the police determined. I don't believe you. Believe what you want. The truth is more mundane. Laura fled with you that night, terrified I'd take you away. I merely encouraged her fear. Victoria's smile twisted. She was so desperate to protect you that she drove too fast on those winding roads in the rain. The car went into the lake. She drowned. And I survived. How? Emily pressed. Victoria shrugged. That remains a mystery. Perhaps she managed to get you out before the car sank. Perhaps someone found you afterward. All I know is that by the time I arrived at the scene, the car was underwater. Laura was dead and you were nowhere to be found. So, you let Richard believe his daughter had drowned too. It was kinder that way. Victoria's eyes glinted. And more convenient. The casual cruelty of it stole Emily's breath. You destroyed lives for money. For power, Victoria corrected. The money was just a means to an end. Carter Industries was floundering when I stepped in. Richard was brilliant with inventions but terrible with finances. I saved this family's legacy, including the inheritance you now think you can claim. Emily shook her head. This isn't about money. It's always about money, Miss Parker. Or should I say, Miss Carter? Victoria's voice hardened. Here's what's going to happen. You will pack your things and leave tonight. You will never contact Richard or Ethan again. In return, I will transfer $1 million to an account of your choosing. You think you can buy me off? I think I can offer you a better option than the alternative. Victoria's eyes were cold. Cross me. And not only will you lose any chance of proving your identity, but I will ensure you never work as a nanny again. One call from me and your precious references disappear. Emily felt her anger rising. You've spent 25 years hiding your crimes. Do you really think I'm going to walk away now? I think you're going to be smart, Victoria replied. Take the money, start a new life, forget this fantasy of happy reunions. And if I refuse, Victoria's smile was chilling, then I'll be forced to protect my family from an unstable young woman with delusions about her identity. Who knows what someone like that might do? Perhaps even harm poor little Ethan in her desperation for attention. The threat hung in the air between them. You wouldn't dare, Emily whispered. I've protected the Carter name for decades. Do you really want to test my resolve? Before Emily could respond, the door opened. Ethan stood there, flour on his cheeks from cookie baking, his eyes wide. Emily, are you coming back to help with the cookies? Mrs. Alvarez said they're almost ready. Victoria's expression transformed instantly into practiced affection. Ethan, darling, Miss Parker and I are having an important grown-up conversation." Ethan looked between them, his perceptive eyes noting the tension. "Are you firing Emily?" he asked bluntly. "No, sweetheart," Victoria soothed. "We're just discussing—" "You can't fire her," Ethan interrupted, his small voice gaining strength. "She's the only one who doesn't treat me like I'm broken. She's the only one who makes Grandpa smile." Emily's heart clenched at his passionate defense. "No one's firing anyone right now," she assured him, moving toward the door. "Let's go check on those cookies." As she guided Ethan from the room, she felt Victoria's gaze burning into her back. The threat remained, but Emily had gained a temporary reprieve. That night, after tucking Ethan into bed, Emily sat in her guest house. Reviewing the evidence on her phone, Victoria's direct confrontation had changed everything. The woman now knew Emily had discovered her identity and would do anything to prevent her from reuniting with Richard. A soft knock startled her. She quickly locked her phone before opening the door to find Carlos, his face tight with worry. "Ms. Victoria has called a security company," he said without preamble. "They're coming tomorrow to install new cameras, upgrade the alarm system. She's trying to monitor me," Emily concluded. Carlos nodded grimly. "There's more. She asked Javier to investigate having you removed from the property for suspicious behavior. I overheard them talking." Emily filled him in on her confrontation with Victoria, watching his expression grow increasingly troubled. "You need to tell Mr. Richard the truth," he urged. "Tonight, before Miss Victoria has time to poison him against you." "He'd never believe me without proof," Emily countered. "And Victoria threatened to corrupt any DNA test. Then we need something she can't corrupt." Carlos hesitated. "There may be a way, Mrs. Laura gave me something to keep safe. The day before she disappeared, I hid it, as she asked. Never told anyone, not even the police." Emily's heart raced. "What is it? Financial records? Bank transfers? Everything Ms. Victoria stole, documented by Mrs. Laura." He twisted his weathered hands. "I buried it on the property. By the old oak, I was supposed to give it to Mr. Richard if anything happened to her." "Why didn't you?" Carlos's eyes filled with shame. "Ms. Victoria threatened my family. My daughter was sick, needed expensive treatments. She made it clear I would lose my job, my health insurance, everything, if I didn't stay silent." Emily understood his impossible choice. "But you're willing to help now. My daughter is grown, healthy, and I've lived with this guilt for 25 years. His voice strengthened. "Tomorrow morning, before the security company arrives, I'll retrieve the package." As Carlos left, Emily felt a mix of hope and dread. Tomorrow might bring the proof she needed, or it might be her last day in the Carter household. That night, she was startled from restless sleep by her phone buzzing with a text from an unknown number. "Don't trust Carlos. Victoria knows everything. Be careful." The sender's identity remained a mystery, but the warning was clear. Victoria was always one step ahead. Across the property in the main house, Ethan woke crying from a nightmare, calling for his parents, and then for Emily. As she hurried to comfort him, she wondered if the family she'd finally found would be torn from her a second time. "You're not going to leave, are you?" Ethan whispered as she sat on the edge of his bed. "Not if I can help it," she promised, though uncertainty gnawed at her. In the darkened hallway outside Ethan's room, the portrait of Laura Carter seemed to watch Emily with eyes identical to her own. Eyes filled with the same determination to protect what she loved. No matter the cost, morning arrived with heavy fog blanketing the Carter estate, shrouding the gardens in ghostly white. Emily had barely slept, her mind cycling through options, dangers, and the mysterious warning text. As she dressed, her phone buzzed with a message from Carlos. "Old Oak, 7 a.m. The ancient oak stood at the far boundary of the property, its massive trunk and sprawling branches visible even through the fog. Emily made her way there cautiously, telling Mrs. Alvarez she was taking an early morning jog, a habit she'd established in her first weeks to avoid suspicion. Carlos was already waiting, kneeling beside the tree's exposed roots, his weathered hands digging in the soft earth. When he saw Emily approaching, he gestured for her to hurry. "Ms. Victoria has scheduled an emergency staff meeting at 8, he explained. His voice hushed despite the isolation. "We don't have much time. Did anyone see you come here?" Emily asked, remembering the warning text. No, I disabled the camera on this section last night. Maintenance issue. He smiled grimly. After 30 years, I know all the blind spots. His fingers found something solid, and he carefully extracted a metal box, roughly the size of a hardcover book. It was sealed with electrical tape, now degraded and brittle with age. Mrs. Laura wrapped it in plastic before placing it in this box, he explained. Said the contents were too important to risk water damage. Emily's heart pounded as Carlos handed her the box. Thank you, she whispered, for keeping this safe all these years. Carlos shook his head, eyes downcast. Don't thank me. I should have given this to Mr. Richard years ago. My silence made me complicit. You were protecting your daughter and betraying my conscience. He looked up at the fog-shrouded mansion. Some sins can't be washed away, Miss Parker, but perhaps helping you can be my penance. As they rose to leave, a twig snapped nearby. Carlos tensed. Go, he whispered urgently. Back to your cottage. Don't let anyone see that box. Emily tucked the box under her running jacket and took a different path back, circling around the greenhouse to avoid the main house. In her guest house, she locked the door before carefully opening the rusted metal container. Inside was a plastic-wrapped bundle, still remarkably preserved. Emily's hands trembled as she unwrapped it, revealing a leather portfolio and a sealed envelope addressed to Richard in Laura's elegant handwriting. The portfolio contained exactly what Carlos had described: bank statements, transfer records, and a detailed accounting of funds diverted from the Carter Foundation to offshore accounts controlled by Victoria. Laura had meticulously documented every transaction, highlighting discrepancies and providing evidence that millions meant for charitable causes had been embezzled over several years. But it was the envelope that made Emily gasp. Inside was a letter to Richard, explaining Victoria's crimes in detail, and a small plastic hospital bracelet labeled Baby Carter. Emily R. Attached to the bracelet was a clear evidence bag containing several strands of fine baby hair. DNA, Emily whispered. Evidence that even Victoria and Javier couldn't corrupt or replace. Also in the envelope was a handwritten note. Richard, if anything happens to me, please test our daughter's DNA against these samples. I fear Victoria may try to separate us. The silver rose pendant is with Emily. It will identify her if we're ever parted. All my love, Laura. Emily held the evidence to her chest, tears flowing freely. Here was everything she needed. Proof of Victoria's crimes and biological evidence to confirm her identity. After 25 years of searching, the truth could finally come to light. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Alvarez. Mr. Richard looking for you. Urgent. Emily carefully rewrapped the documents and DNA sample, hiding them in the hollowed-out book she'd used for years to protect her most precious possessions, with the box buried beneath the rose bushes outside her window. She hurried to the main house. She found Richard in his study, looking unusually troubled. Miss Parker? He said, his voice formal in a way it hadn't been for weeks. Please sit down. Victoria stood by the window, her expression coolly triumphant. Beside her was a thin man in an expensive suit, whom Emily recognized from photographs as Javier Mendez, the family lawyer. I've received some concerning information, Richard began, not quite meeting her eyes, about your background and your intentions in this household. Emily's stomach dropped. Victoria had moved faster than anticipated. Miss Parker, or whatever your real name is, Victoria interjected smoothly, has been investigating our family since before her employment began. She has accessed private areas of the house, questioned staff about Laura's disappearance, and searched your personal effects, Richard. That's not exactly... Emily started, but Javier raised his hand. We have evidence, he said, placing a folder on Richard's desk. Background checks revealing discrepancies in her employment history, security footage of her entering the East Wing, staff reports of inappropriate questions. Emily looked directly at Richard, ignoring the others. I can explain everything. Please do, he said, his expression unreadable. Emily took a deep breath. This moment had arrived sooner than she'd planned, but perhaps it was time for the truth. I came here looking for answers about my past, she began. I was abandoned at St. Joseph's Orphanage on September 17, 1999, 3 days after Laura Carter disappeared. Victoria scoffed. Thousands of children enter the foster system every year. I had nothing to identify me, Emily continued, focusing solely on Richard, except a photograph of a woman wearing a silver rose pendant, identical to the one you wear, Mr. Carter. Richard's hand unconsciously moved to his chest, where the pendant lay hidden beneath his shirt. This is absurd, Victoria cut in. She's clearly researched our family tragedy to exploit your grief, Richard. It's a common con. If it's a con, Emily said evenly, then she won't object to a DNA test. The room fell silent. Richard looked stunned, his eyes moving between Emily and his sister. You can't be suggesting, Javier began. I'm suggesting that I am Laura and Richard Carter's daughter, Emily said clearly. The daughter everyone believed drowned with her mother 25 years ago. Victoria's face hardened. This is exactly the delusional behavior I warned you about, Richard. She's unstable, possibly dangerous. I have evidence, Emily continued, her voice strengthening. Laura's diary entries describing how she feared for our safety, her birth certificate naming me as Emily Rose Carter, and most importantly, she looked directly at Victoria. Evidence of why Laura was running that night. Financial records showing millions embezzled from the Carter Foundation. Victoria's composure slipped momentarily. Preposterous. Where is this supposed evidence? Somewhere safe, Emily replied. Along with a DNA sample Laura preserved before her death. Richard stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. That's enough. His voice was strained but commanding. Javier, arrange for an independent DNA test today. Richard, you can't possibly believe... Victoria began. I said enough. Richard rarely raised his voice, and the effect silenced even Victoria. For 25 years, I've lived with unanswered questions. If there's even a possibility. His voice faltered as he looked at Emily, really looked at her, perhaps seeing for the first time the resemblance that others had noticed. Laura's eyes, her cheekbones, her determined expression. The test will settle this, he said finally. One way or another. Victoria composed herself quickly. Fine. A test. But until then, she should not be allowed near Ethan. If she's so desperate to convince you she's your daughter, who knows what she might do? As if summoned by his name, Ethan appeared in the doorway, eyes wide with confusion. What's going on? Why is everyone yelling? Before anyone could answer, the boy doubled over in a sudden fit of coughing, his small face flushing with alarming speed. He gasped for breath, wheezing audibly. Ethan! Emily rushed to him as his legs buckled. She caught him before he hit the floor, feeling the heat radiating from his body. He's burning up. Richard was beside them instantly. Call an ambulance, he ordered, his voice tight with fear. I'll do it, Javier said, already dialing. Emily cradled Ethan, whose breathing grew increasingly labored. It's okay, she soothed, though panic clawed at her chest. Help is coming. Can't breathe, Ethan gasped, his lips taking on a bluish tinge. Anaphylactic shock, Richard said grimly, rushing to a drawer and extracting an EpiPen. He's severely allergic to peanuts. As Richard administered the injection, Emily held Ethan steady, murmuring reassurances. His breathing eased slightly, but he remained alarmingly limp in her arms. The cookies, Mrs. Alvarez cried from the doorway. There must have been cross-contamination in the kitchen. The next hours passed in a blur of sirens, emergency rooms, and sterile hospital corridors. Through it all, Emily refused to leave Ethan's side, even as Victoria repeatedly suggested she had no place there. Family only, a nurse finally insisted, as they prepared to move Ethan to a private room once stabilized. Richard, who had been silent for hours, finally spoke. She stays, he said firmly. She's family. Victoria's protest died on her lips as Richard turned to her with cold fury. Ethan nearly died today. Nothing else matters right now. As night fell, Emily sat beside Ethan's hospital bed, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. Richard entered quietly, looking exhausted but relieved. The doctors say he'll make a full recovery, he said, taking the seat opposite her. Thanks in large part to your quick response. Thank goodness, Emily whispered. Gently adjusting Ethan's blanket, they sat in silence for several minutes, the beeping monitors providing the only sound. The DNA samples have been collected, Richard finally said. Results in 48 hours. Emily nodded, suddenly afraid, after all this time. The truth would finally be known, for better or worse. I want to believe you, Richard admitted quietly, not just because of how much you remind me of Laura, but because of how you are with him. He nodded toward Ethan. How you've brought life back to our home, whatever the results show, Emily said softly. Caring for Ethan has never been part of any agenda. I love him. Richard studied her face in the dim hospital light. I know, he said simply. That's what makes me think Laura would have been proud of the woman you've become, if you truly are our Emily. As he turned to leave, Emily called after him softly. The rose pendant you wear. What did it mean to you and Laura? Richard paused, his hand unconsciously rising to his chest. It was my promise to her that our love would endure anything. After she died, I couldn't bear to take it off. His eyes met Emily's. How did you know I still wear it? Because its twin was in the photograph I've carried my entire life, Emily answered. The only link to my past. For the first time, genuine hope flickered across Richard's face. Without another word, he left the room, leaving Emily to wonder if, after 25 years of separation, a father and daughter might finally find their way back to each other. The hospital released Ethan the following afternoon with strict instructions for monitoring and care. Emily rode back to the Carter estate in silence. Seated beside Richard, while Ethan dozed between them, still pale but recovering, Victoria had conspicuously chosen to take a separate car. She's been on the phone constantly, Richard remarked, glancing at his sister's car ahead of them. Emergency board meetings. Calls with Javier, all very unusual. Emily nodded, understanding the implication. Victoria was preparing for the worst, the revelation of both her decades-long financial crimes and her role in Laura's death, as they pulled through the estate gates. Richard turned to Emily. I need you to show me this evidence you mentioned. All of it. Of course, she replied. It's in my guest house. After we settle Ethan, then. His voice was calm, but carried an undercurrent of tension that hadn't been present before. The businessman was now fully engaged, approaching the situation methodically. Once Ethan was comfortably resting under Mrs. Alvarez's watchful eye, Emily led Richard to her guest house. She carefully extracted the leather portfolio and envelope from their hiding place. Along with her treasured photograph, Richard's hands trembled slightly as he accepted the materials. Where did you get these? He asked, his voice hoarse as he recognized Laura's handwriting. Carlos kept them safe. Laura gave them to him the day before she disappeared, in case something happened to her. Richard's expression darkened. Carlos knew, all these years. Victoria threatened his daughter's medical care, Emily explained. She was critically ill, needed treatments the family's health insurance covered. Richard nodded grimly. Understanding the impossible position his loyal employee had faced, he carefully opened the portfolio, examining the financial records Laura had compiled. His face grew increasingly stony as he traced the evidence of his sister's betrayal. Millions, he whispered. From children's hospitals, research grants, scholarship programs. He looked up at Emily, his eyes hard. She stole from sick children to fund her lifestyle and increase her control of the company, Emily confirmed. Laura discovered it and confronted her. That's why Victoria was so desperate to silence her. Richard turned to the sealed envelope next, opening it with careful precision. He removed the letter, reading Laura's final words to him, written in a hand he hadn't seen in 25 years. As he came to the DNA evidence, the tiny hospital bracelet and lock of baby hair, his composure finally broke. Emily, he whispered, looking up with tears in his eyes. My Emily. The formal DNA results wouldn't arrive until tomorrow, but in that moment, Richard Carter knew. This young woman was his daughter, Laura's daughter, the child he had believed lost forever. I should have looked harder, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I should have questioned the official story, if I hadn't been so consumed by grief. Victoria made sure you wouldn't, Emily said gently. She controlled the narrative, the investigation, everything. Richard nodded, wiping his eyes. Through Javier, I trusted him completely. His expression hardened. That ends today. Richard pulled out his phone and made a brief call. Security office. Now, was all he said before hanging up. Together, they walked to the main house, where Richard led Emily to a room she hadn't entered before. A state-of-the-art security office equipped with multiple monitors displaying camera feeds from throughout the property. "Mr. Carter," the security chief acknowledged, looking surprised to see Emily present. "Show me yesterday's kitchen footage," Richard instructed, "from morning until Ethan's allergic reaction." The chief complied, queuing up the video for 20 minutes. They watched routine kitchen activity, staff preparing breakfast, Mrs. Alvarez baking cookies with Ethan, various comings and goings. Then Victoria entered, ostensibly to check on Ethan's progress, as the boy and Mrs. Alvarez focused on rolling cookie dough. Victoria casually opened her purse near the mixing bowl, her hand making a subtle movement before she snapped the purse closed again. "There," Richard said sharply. "Freeze and zoom." The enhanced image clearly showed Victoria's hand above the mixing bowl, fingers releasing a fine powder. "Peanut flour," Richard said, his voice deadly quiet, concentrated, nearly invisible. She deliberately triggered Ethan's allergy. Emily felt sick. She could have killed him. Why would she? To create chaos. "Distract us from the DNA test." Richard's face was pale with fury. "She put my grandson in the hospital to buy herself time." He picked up the security office phone. "Find my sister, bring her to my study immediately, then locate Javier Mendez. He's not to leave the property." As they walked to the study, Emily asked, "What are you going to do?" "End this," Richard replied simply. "After 25 years, it's time for the truth." Victoria was already waiting in the study when they arrived, looking impeccably composed in a designer suit. "The security team said it was urgent," she remarked coolly. "Is Ethan all right?" "Drop the act," Richard said, his voice ice cold. "I know everything." Victoria's expression didn't change, but her eyes flickered briefly to Emily. "What has she been telling you, Richard? You can't possibly—" "I saw the security footage," he interrupted. "You deliberately contaminated Ethan's cookies with peanut product." For the first time, Victoria seemed genuinely startled. "That's absurd. Why would I harm my own great-nephew?" "Because you're desperate." Richard placed Laura's portfolio on the desk between them. "Because Emily found this. The evidence Laura compiled against you 25 years ago. The proof of your embezzlement." Victoria stared at the portfolio, recognition dawning in her eyes. "Where did you get that?" "From the person Laura entrusted it to, in case something happened to her." Richard's voice grew even colder. "Did you kill her, Victoria? Did you run her off that road into the lake?" "Of course not." Victoria's composure cracked slightly. "It was an accident. I never touched her car. But you threatened her." "Threatened her baby?" Richard's hands clenched into fists. "You made her so terrified she fled in the middle of the night, in a rainstorm." Victoria straightened, her aristocratic features hardening. "What I did for this family, for the Carter legacy." "You stole millions from our foundation." Richard slammed his hand on the desk, making them both jump. "You separated me from my daughter for 25 years. The company was failing when you were in charge," Victoria hissed. "Your precious scientific research was bleeding us dry. Someone had to make the hard decisions." "By stealing from children's hospitals," Emily interjected, unable to remain silent. "That was your hard decision." Victoria turned her cold gaze to Emily. "You have no idea what it takes to maintain a family empire. Richard would have run it into the ground with his idealistic notions. So you decided to run it your way," Richard said. "By embezzlement and fraud. I decided to save it," Victoria corrected. "The money I diverted went to strategic investments that kept Carter Industries alive while you played with your laboratories and pet projects. And Laura," Richard's voice broke slightly, "was silencing her another strategic investment." Victoria's expression grew calculating. "Laura was going to ruin everything with her naive righteousness. She wouldn't listen to reason. I merely suggested that her baby might not be safe if she continued poking into matters that didn't concern her." "You threatened an infant," Emily said, disgust evident in her voice. "I made an implication," Victoria corrected coldly. "Laura chose to flee rather than discuss it rationally. What happened after was unfortunate, but hardly my fault." Richard stared at his sister as if seeing her for the first time. "You're a monster," he said quietly. "My wife died terrified because of you." I lost 25 years with my daughter because of you. And yet the company prospered, Victoria replied, unrepentant. Your fortune tripled, your influence expanded, all because I was willing to do what you couldn't. A knock at the door interrupted them. The security chief entered, escorting Javier Mendez, whose usual polished demeanor appeared distinctly ruffled. Richard, Javier began, this is highly irregular. Your security team practically dragged me. Save it, Richard cut him off. I know about your role in covering up Laura's accident, in suppressing evidence, in helping Victoria embezzle from our foundation. Javier paled, glancing at Victoria. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, Richard replied. And you're going to tell me exactly how it happened, all of it, or I'll ensure you're disbarred and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Victoria laughed sharply. Empty threats, Richard. The statute of limitations. Doesn't apply to ongoing fraud, Richard interrupted, or to vehicular homicide, or to child endangerment. He nodded toward the security footage still visible on his computer monitor. Victoria's hand over the cookie mixture. You tried to kill Ethan yesterday. There's no statute of limitations on that. For the first time, genuine fear flickered across Victoria's face. She turned to Javier. Don't say a word. He's bluffing. But Javier was already crumbling. It was never supposed to go this far, he said, sinking into a chair. The financial transfers, yes, but Laura's accident, that wasn't planned. Victoria just wanted the baby, Emily gasped. What? Shut up, Javier, Victoria snapped. But the lawyer continued, years of guilt finally breaking through. Victoria knew if Laura went to Richard with the financial evidence, everything would collapse. She planned to take the baby, Emily, and use her as leverage, force Laura to hand over the evidence in exchange for her daughter's safety. You were going to kidnap me, Emily whispered, horrified. It was a contingency plan, Victoria said coldly. One we never implemented because Laura ran. But when her car went into the lake, Javier continued, and the baby's body wasn't found, Victoria saw an opportunity. If Emily was presumed dead, there would be no loose ends. Richard's face had gone white with fury. You let me believe my daughter was dead when you knew she might be alive. We didn't know she was alive, Victoria insisted. Not until she showed up at our door 25 years later, playing nanny. Richard turned to the security chief. Call the police. Now. As the security chief moved to comply, Victoria's cold facade finally shattered. You can't do this to me. I saved this family. Everything you have. You owe to my management, my decisions. What I owed was to my wife and daughter, Richard replied, his voice steady with conviction. And I intend to spend whatever time I have left making up for that failure. As Victoria was escorted from the room, still protesting her innocence and threatening legal action, Javier remained, slumped in defeat. There's something else you should know, he said quietly. About the night Laura's car went into the lake. Victoria was there. Emily and Richard both stared at him. She followed Laura from the house. Javier continued. She called me in a panic afterward. Said Laura had lost control on the curve, that the car was underwater. She made me help her stage it as an accident. So she did kill my mother, Emily said, her voice barely audible. Javier shook his head. Victoria swore she never touched the car, but she admitted she confronted Laura on the road. There was an argument. Laura was distraught, driving too fast afterward. He looked up at Richard. I helped cover it up, for 25 years. I've helped hide the truth. I'm sorry. As the police arrived to take statements and collect evidence, Emily stood at the window, watching Victoria being escorted to a police car. The woman walked with her head high, still every inch the Carter matriarch in her own mind. Behind her, Emily heard Richard on the phone, his voice authoritative as he spoke with the family's crisis management team. This would become public. The embezzlement, the decades of fraud, the circumstances of Laura's death. The Carter name would be tarnished in ways that couldn't be contained. But as Emily turned back to the room, catching Richard's eye as he ended his call, she knew that something far more important had been salvaged from the wreckage of Victoria's machinations, the truth about her identity, and the chance to reclaim the family that had been stolen from her 25 years ago. 6 months had passed since the day Victoria Carter was arrested. 6 months of headlines, legal proceedings, and the painful process of untangling decades of financial deceit. The formal DNA results had confirmed what Richard and Emily already knew in their hearts. She was, without question, Emily Rose Carter, the daughter he had believed lost 25 years ago. Now, on a crisp autumn morning, Emily stood in the garden beside Richard, watching as gardeners planted new rose bushes. Emily's rose, a variety Richard had commissioned in silvery pink, companion to the ones created for Laura decades earlier. "They'll bloom next spring," Richard said, his hand resting lightly on Emily's shoulder. Laura would have loved seeing them. Emily nodded, her throat tight with emotion. "I wish I could remember her." "You honor her memory every day," Richard replied. "In who you are, how you care for Ethan, the foundation work you've started." The Carter Foundation had been Emily's primary focus since her identity was confirmed. With Victoria's embezzlement exposed, Emily had worked tirelessly to restore the foundation's mission and reputation, redirecting funds to the children's hospitals and research grants that had been Victoria's victims. "The board meeting went well yesterday?" she asked, though she already knew the answer from Richard's relaxed demeanor. "Unanimous approval for your appointment as foundation director," Richard smiled, pride evident in his eyes. Not that there was ever any doubt. They walked together toward the small cemetery on the estate's edge, a private place where generations of Carters had been laid to rest, though Laura's body had never been recovered from the lake. Richard had created a memorial for her, a marble angel with Laura's features, watching over an empty grave. "This will be my first time visiting her," Emily said softly as they approached the memorial. "I wasn't ready before," Richard nodded, understanding. "Take your time, I'll wait here." Emily continued alone to the marble angel, its serene face capturing the gentle strength she'd seen in Laura's photographs. She placed a single silver-pink rose at its base, then knelt on the soft grass. "Hello, Mother," she whispered. "It's me, Emily. I'm sorry it took so long to find my way home." The morning breeze rustled through nearby trees, a sound that felt almost like a response. "I wish we could have had our life together," Emily continued, tears flowing freely now. "But I want you to know that I found him, just as you hoped I would." The pendant led me back. She touched the silver rose pendant that now hung around her neck, Laura's original pendant, which Richard had given to Emily after Victoria's arrest. Its twin remained around Richard's neck, a connection neither wanted to break. "Victoria will spend the rest of her life in prison," Emily said, her voice strengthening. "The jury took less than 3 hours to convict her. Embezzlement, fraud, and criminal negligence resulting in death." She paused. "Not murder, like we'd hoped, but enough to ensure justice." Emily sat in silence for several moments, feeling a sense of peace that had eluded her throughout her life. She had questions that would never be answered, memories she would never recover, but she had also found her place in the world, her family, her history, her purpose. "I'll take care of them," she promised, "Richard and Ethan, and I'll make sure the foundation helps children like I once was. No child should feel as alone as I did." As she rose to leave, Emily noticed something she'd missed before, a small inscription at the base of the angel. "Love endures all things." The same words Laura had written in her final letter to Richard, the same sentiment embodied in the matching rose pendants. Richard was waiting where she'd left him, giving her the privacy she needed for this moment. "Ready?" he asked gently. Emily nodded, taking his offered arm. "Yes, Ethan will be waiting for us." At the main house, 8-year-old Ethan was indeed waiting impatiently, bouncing on his toes beside Carlos, who now served as the boy's unofficial grandfather figure since his promotion to estate manager. "Finally," Ethan exclaimed as they approached. "Carlos says I can't open any presents until you're both here." Emily laughed, the sound still novel in a household that had known too little joy for too many years. "It's your birthday. I think that means you make the rules." "That's what I said," Ethan agreed, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the festively decorated living room. "Come on," Richard followed, exchanging amused glances with Carlos. In the 6 months since Emily had been officially recognized as his daughter, Richard had transformed, the weight of 25 years of grief lifting visibly from his shoulders. He smiled more, worked less, and devoted himself to rebuilding the relationships that mattered most. The living room had been transformed for Ethan's NASA-themed birthday party. Model rockets hung from the ceiling. Planet decorations orbited the room, and a cake shaped like the Mars rover dominated the central table. Mrs. Alvarez made astronaut ice cream, Ethan announced, pointing to the freeze-dried treats arranged on a silver platter. Just like real astronauts eat, Emily confirmed, helping him into his child-sized lab coat, a gift from Richard that matched the one Ethan's father had worn as a scientist. As Ethan tore into his presence with gleeful abandon, Emily found herself watching Richard's face. The joy there, the peace, the contentment that had been absent when she'd first arrived as a nanny searching for answers. "This is for you," Richard said suddenly, handing Emily a small package wrapped in silver paper. "I know it's not your birthday, but it seemed like the right moment." Inside was a framed photograph she'd never seen before, Laura holding newborn Emily. With Richard beside them, his arm protectively around his wife and daughter, they looked blissfully happy, a perfect family with their future ahead of them. "I found it in Laura's things," Richard explained. "I thought you should have it." "Thank you," Emily whispered, tracing the image of the mother she'd never known and the father she'd found again. "Aunt Emily," Ethan called, holding up a telescope, his main gift from Richard. "Can we use it tonight for the meteor shower you promised?" "Absolutely," she replied. The Persids wait for no one. Later, after cake had been devoured, presents exclaimed over, and the small gathering of Ethan's friends had departed. The three of them sat together on the terrace, Ethan nestled between Emily and Richard, examining his astronomy book. "Dad would have liked this party," the boy said matter-of-factly. "He always said my birthday was the best day of the year." "He was right about that," Richard agreed, ruffling his grandson's hair. "Do you think he and Mom can see us from heaven?" Ethan asked, a question he'd posed often since Emily had entered their lives and made such conversations safe again. "I believe they can," Emily said gently. "Just like my mother can see us. They're the brightest stars up there." Ethan considered this, then nodded, satisfied. "That's why we need the telescope, to see them better." "Exactly right," Richard said, his voice thick with emotion. As evening approached, Emily helped Ethan set up his telescope on the lawn. Richard joined them, bringing blankets and hot chocolate for their meteor-watching vigil. "I've asked Carlos to join our meteor party," Richard mentioned casually, "and Mrs. Alvarez, their family too." Emily smiled, understanding what this meant. Richard was healing, expanding his circle of trust beyond the isolation grief had imposed for so many years. As darkness fell and the first meteor streaked across the sky, Emily found herself surrounded by what she had sought her entire life: family, not perfect, not unmarked by tragedy, but real and loving, and finally, hers. Ethan gasped at a particularly bright meteor. "Make a wish," he instructed them all seriously. Emily closed her eyes, though she found she had nothing urgent to wish for. The empty space inside her that had driven her search for identity had been filled, not just with answers about her past, but with purpose for her future. "What did you wish for?" Ethan whispered. "If I tell you, it won't come true," she teased, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. "I wished that we stay like this forever," the boy confided anyway. "You, me, Grandpa, our family." Richard reached across his grandson to take Emily's hand. "Some wishes don't need shooting stars," he said softly. "Some come true through love and determination." Emily thought of the inscription on Laura's memorial. Love endures all things. Through separation, through tragedy, through time itself, love had found a way to reunite father and daughter, to heal wounds that seemed unhealable, to create a family from the fragments of what had been broken. As another meteor blazed across the heavens, Emily touched the silver rose pendant at her throat, her mother's legacy, her connection to the past. And now, a symbol of her future, the circle that had been broken 25 years ago was complete again, not unchanged, not undamaged, but whole in a new and precious way. "Look," Ethan pointed skyward as a cluster of meteors streaked past simultaneously. "They're dancing." And so they were, celestial lights painting the darkness with momentary brilliance, reminding those watching from below that even the darkest night sky could be transformed by unexpected beauty, just as the darkest chapters of life could be followed by new beginnings. just as Emily Rose Carter had found her way home.